Welcome to our in-depth exploration of Greenland's future. To start, why is Greenland suddenly so central to global geopolitics, especially in the context of the US and China?
Great question. Greenland's location in the Arctic gives it outsized strategic value, especially as melting ice opens new shipping routes. On top of that, its rare earth mineral reserves make it attractive to powers like the US and China, both seeking resources critical for technologies like smartphones and electric vehicles.
So, it's not just about geography, but also about resources and emerging trade routes. How does Greenland's current autonomy play into these dynamics?
Greenland's self-rule since 2009 lets it manage its mineral rights, but Denmark still controls foreign affairs and defense. As Greenland debates full independence, its ability to choose external partners becomes crucial, and global powers are watching closely.
Let's delve into Greenland's economy. With a population of just 56, zero, and heavy reliance on Danish subsidies, how could new partnerships shift this dynamic?
Currently, about 500 million a year comes from Denmark, funding essential services. If the US stepped in, infrastructure investments, airports, broadband, ports could diversify the economy beyond fishing. Think Alaska's transformation post-statehood, but with modern safeguards.
What about the Chinese approach? Will their investments bring similar opportunities, or are there pitfalls?
Chinese investment tends to be rapid, but often comes with strings. Their projects in Africa and Sri Lanka show how opaque terms can lead to debt dependency, risking economic sovereignty for short-term gains.
Security is another major factor. The US already operates the Patuxent Space Baseho. Could a closer relationship impact Greenland's defense?
A formal US-Greenland partnership could mean expanded defense infrastructure, deterring not just Russia, but also China from encroachment. It's similar to the US's role in Guam, where local governance is preserved, but military protection is robust.
Conversely, what strategic risks arise if China gains a foothold?
China's dual-use facilities, think satellite stations or deep-water ports, could challenge NATO's security umbrella. This could turn Greenland into a flashpoint, heightening tensions between superpowers.
Environmental protection is critical in the Arctic. How would US stewardship compare to Chinese involvement in terms of ecological safeguards?
The US has established regulatory frameworks and public scrutiny. For example, environmental impact assessments are standard. In contrast, Chinese firms have faced criticism for lax standards. See the Kvanefjeld mining controversy, where local protest paused uranium extraction over ecological fears.
Would US involvement guarantee better outcomes for Greenland's fragile ecosystems?
While no system is perfect, US environmental law bolstered by watchdog groups generally enforces stricter protections than China's extractive-driven model.
Cultural integrity is a concern for many Greenlanders. How might US or Chinese partnerships affect Inuit traditions and governance?
The US legal system, despite its flaws, recognizes indigenous rights and self-determination frameworks. This could empower Inuit governance, drawing parallels with Alaska Native corporations. In contrast, China's track record with ethnic minorities suggests less emphasis on cultural autonomy.
Could US integration risk cultural dilution, as critics warn?
There's always a risk, but structured agreements like those in Puerto Rico can balance integration with local identity, especially if Greenlanders retain broad self-rule.
Let's compare political models. How do US and Chinese governance systems align with Greenland's democratic aspirations?
Greenland's parliament and emerging constitution show a strong democratic trajectory. US partnership would likely reinforce transparent, participatory governance. In contrast, China's top-down, one-party system could undermine local agency, possibly imposing limits on dissent or indigenous representation.
Are there examples where external powers influenced governance in small states?
Yes, Pacific Island nations under Chinese influence have faced pushback over transparency. Meanwhile, US territories like Guam maintain local legislatures and courts, albeit within US federal frameworks.
Debt diplomacy is often discussed in relation to Chinese foreign investment. Could Greenland fall into similar patterns?
There's precedent. In Sri Lanka, failure to repay Chinese loans resulted in the loss of Hambantota port for 99 years. Greenland's small economy could be overwhelmed by large, opaque loans, risking long-term economic dependency and loss of strategic assets.
How might U.S. financing differ in practice?
The U.S. tends to provide grants or low-interest loans with more transparency and oversight. There's also congressional scrutiny, which can delay projects but often prevents exploitative terms.
Let's examine real-world environmental impacts. How did the Kvanefjeld mining project highlight these issues in Greenland?
Kvanefjeld, backed by Chinese investment, proposed large-scale uranium and rare earth mining. Local opposition was fierce, citing risks to water supplies and reindeer herding. The project was suspended, illustrating how Greenland's civil society can influence outcomes something less feasible under pure Chinese control.
Could future U.S.-backed projects face similar resistance?
Absolutely. However, U.S. firms are more accustomed to public hearings and environmental litigation, making them more likely to adapt or halt projects in response to local concerns.
If China were to gain a strategic foothold, how might the U.S. and NATO react? And what would that mean for Greenlanders?
The region could become a flashpoint, similar to how the South China Sea's militarization triggered U.S. naval patrols. NATO would likely increase its Arctic presence, escalating tensions. For Greenlanders, this could mean a loss of agency as major powers compete for influence in their homeland.
Does U.S. stewardship risk similar escalation, or is the dynamic different?
U.S. integration is less likely to provoke NATO as it aligns with existing alliances. However, it could still anger Russia and China, so diplomatic management remains vital.
As we wrap up, what strategic path best serves Greenlanders based on all we've discussed?
A U.S. partnership, if structured around autonomy, environmental protection, and economic empowerment, offers the most transparent and durable benefits. It supports Greenland's democratic aspirations and safeguards while minimizing risks of exploitation seen in some Chinese-led projects.
Could Greenland pursue a hybrid approach, balancing both powers?
It's conceivable, but historically, smaller states that try to play both sides risk getting caught in great power competition. A clear, values-aligned partnership anchored in transparency and local consent remains the safest bet for sustainable progress.